Hey guys, what is up? SuperKmanrocks here, back with my Week 1 LCK analysis, power rankings, reactions, all of that stuff. If you are excited for this video, please go ahead and leave a like. I've been getting a lot of requests to do this in the comment section. You guys really like the LCK, and I have to admit, LCK is one of my favorite regions as well. Probably my favorite region to watch. It has been for quite a long time. LCK has just kind of been my bread and butter. But that being said, I don't want to waste too much time with the introductions here. I do want to say this, however, the format. If you are familiar with my LPL weekly reviews, the format for this is actually going to be a little bit different. The on-screen stuff is going to be a little bit different. I'm actually going to be updating the LPL weekly analysis for that as well. I got a couple comments that people would like to see more visuals of the draft. And so I did update my visual presentation. Let me know what you guys think of that. Down in the description below, or the comment section below, because obviously I'm just here to help make as much good content as I can, the content that you guys want to see. So let me know if this is a hit or a miss down in the comment section below. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into our first series of the week, the first series of the LCK season, and that was Gen G taking on KT Rolster in what was a very dominant 2-0 sweep. Game 1 especially. Doran just got absolutely abused in the top lane. This is what the format's going to look like, by the way. It's pretty similar, but now instead of the star of the week and the dud of the week, or the player of the series and the dud of the series, I have the entire drafts as well as their scoreline for the series. And I still do have my player of the series and dud color-coded in there as well. So, yeah, this was just a brutal series for KT. They never really got going. In Game 1, the Camille just got so far ahead against the Gnar that the split push was essentially just completely out of control. There was nothing they were going to be able to do. And, you know, there was no way to engage. There was really no way to fight at all. Gen G kind of just coasted to a win. It took them a little longer than I expected, but they got there eventually. And then Game 2, again, just more snowballing. They got like an early 2v2 kill bot. They got a pick in the jungle, and they just kept snowballing over and over again. My player of the series is going to be Rascal. He played that top lane matchup perfectly, especially on that Camille. He knew exactly how to punish the Gnar. The Gnar that I think a lot of people were really confused about the high priority of. But I kind of understand it. I think it's kind of a catch-all. And I can see why, especially LCK teams would be super excited to use it. Because it's kind of a tank, but it also can engage. And it's also, you know, offensive in a sense. It can handle itself in lane. Like, it's kind of a catch-all pick. So I get why Korea would really like that pick. However, I also understand why it might not be the best to set up your entire draft to select that. In Game 2, BDD was really good. Ruler was good all series long, especially on that Kai'Sa. I do want to give a pretty big shout out to Zeus. KT overall didn't look super good, but Zeus I thought looked pretty good, especially on the Alistar. He was definitely trying to make plays, which I can't say for the rest of the team. UCal as well, I thought, had a decent series. Clid, I thought, was a little disappointing, if only just because he was a little bit irrelevant, but that's pretty much it. There was nothing really bad from Clid's play, just wasn't a big fan. I mean, he made a couple questionable plays on the Olaf, but I mean, you know, it wasn't too bad. And obviously, it didn't end up mattering in the end. But either way, Gen G really coasting to a nice victory here, proving that they are exactly what we thought they were. You know, they're running it back with 5, and the chemistry and the team synergy is already there. KT with some kinks to iron out, but they're missing their jungler in blank, at least for this game. He does return later in the week, and, you know, I'll get to how that works out later, but, you know, I didn't have high hopes for KT. I know some other people did, but this didn't surprise me too much with the outcome. But you can really hope that KT, you know, figures it out once they get their entire roster together. Next, we are going to be moving on to our second series of Day 1, and that was going to be T1 taking on Hanwha Liiv Esports. T1 taking on Chovy, Deft, whatever you want to say, the first, other than Kespa Cup, the first appearance of this brand new Hanwha Liiv Esports team. It didn't go quite as expected. Actually, I guess it went exactly as expected, but just maybe not for them. T1 kind of had full control. Especially in Game 1, Elim was just all over the map. Now, I do want to talk about the roster changes really quick. They are playing Elim over Kuz, as well as Gumayushi over Teddy. I believe I'm saying that right. And then Closer and Faker are switching out as expected. But with the way they actually performed this week, I'm just going to say this now. this is absolutely the right roster move. This really does feel like the best group of 5, especially Elim. Elim really feels like a star. And if Elim does turn out to be as good as he looks right now, I think they're in a really, really good spot. Gumayushi, sorry, I'm gonna get better at that as the season goes on. Gumayushi looked really good as well, especially in this series. But overall, I thought T1 looked really, really good. The drafts were kind of odd, at least for me, on the Hanwha side. I'm not as big a fan of Rel. I don't think Rel is that oppressive of a pick. And, my dud of the series is going to be Vista, and he did not pull it off. He was constantly getting caught, constantly engaging. They were losing the 2v2. I just think everything was going wrong for this lineup. Like, this draft, this is exactly what couldn't happen. So, it's hard to say where exactly it went wrong. I believe Chovy got solo killed by Closer in game 3. I could be completely wrong. But I'm pretty sure Chovy got solo killed by Closer, which is that's a sign that everything's going downhill. Closer is going to be my player of the series. He had some weird plays in game 2. He kind of kept getting caught, but he really made up for it with a fantastic game 3 on that Aurelia, where he just kind of took over. He had an amazing ult that basically won them the game in a penultimate team fight in that game. But overall, I think T1 looks really good. You maybe wanted a little bit more of a convincing win, but overall, I mean, you're not playing hardly any of your veterans. You basically just have Kana and Keria in there, Keria even being new to the roster. So you're hardly playing any of your veterans, and you come out and you beat what a lot of people consider to be a top 4, top 5 team coming into this. I think it bodes well a lot for T1 going forward. And then for Hanwha, I don't think this is the end of the world. T1 is one of the best teams in the league. If you're going to be concerned about something, it's the top lane. I think Morgan didn't look that great. Obviously, Vista didn't look that great. Arthur, surprisingly, did look good. I was not high on Arthur coming in from the OPL, but he actually looked good in both series he played this week, and we'll get to that later. But there is some upside. Chovy still being Chovy, still out farming Closer every game. Deft, not dying too much. Arthur actually played really well. I think there is upside for this Hanwha team. They just weren't able to show it off in this series. All right, and next week and move on to our first series of day 2, and that was Nongshim RedForce taking on Liiv SANDBOX. Now, I had Nongshim power ranked really high. I barely didn't put them 4th over Hanwha. I had them 5th, but I really had them on the cusp of being 4th. And they kind of reassured that with a solid win here over SANDBOX, who I think a lot of people consider to be a pretty decent team. Maybe not the best team, but a decent one. Game 1, Nongshim had a pretty small lead, but the bot lane was really, really jumping out ahead. Dektum looked fantastic this entire series. He played that Aphelios in game 1. Against him is Fortune Leona, and he actually won lane. He got a 2v2 kill, which was pretty nuts, pretty bad for Effort. Effort did not look good in that game 1 on Leona, but... and then Kellen especially also looked good. Kellen's actually going to be my player of the series, game 2 notwithstanding. Game 2 was very weird, but that Rel game did not... I mean, I guess it just didn't work across the board for Nongshim. The game was basically over by 10 minutes. But outside of that game 2, I thought Nongshim played really, really well. Game 3 was really close. I don't want to take away how close game 3 was. SANDBOX actually had the lead for a lot of that game. Summit got really ahead in the top lane. Summit did outclass Rich for the majority of the series. Rich is actually going to be my dud of the series. I thought he was the worst performing player on either team. I think you could make a case for Effort, but I think... Rich had a more important role, and I think Rich's downfall was more shocking. I think Effort had, as a support on a losing team, I always say this, you're going to look worse. But, if you're a top laner on a winning team, you usually don't look this bad. So Rich is going to be my dud of the series. He's really going to need to improve. I was really high on him last year. Him and Dektum coming over, or staying, I guess, from Dynamics after the rebrand. I was really high on Rich, and he just did not prove that in this series. As for Liiv, I thought you showed some okay stuff. Summit looked really good. He won that top lane matchup consistently. Krako actually looked really good, especially on the Graves. The Graves pick was definitely the one that I think he felt most comfortable on, and you could see that later in the week as well. And then Fate got 3 games of Zoe, so he played well. His poke damage, by the way, in those or pre-fights, I guess, were unbelievable. His Zoe is really, really strong. He put out a ton of damage. He was almost player of the series by himself on the losing side. He was that good. So A lot of good stuff to talk about. I thought Route was good too. Maybe not as good as the scoreline would suggest, but still a pretty good series. I thought there was some really good things to see from SANDBOX here, but Nongshim, I think, proved a lot of people right with their positivity on them, especially that bot lane of Duckdom and Kellen, who looked truly fantastic. And then if Peanut can come along, Bay is still a question mark. He got caught out. His positioning was a little bit weird. Wasn't consistent. He hit that massive Syndra ult in Game 3, though. That massive Syndra Scout of the Week in Game 3 to basically save that team fight and maybe save the entire series. But outside of that play, he wasn't necessarily super consistent. I definitely am going to need to see more out of him. Overall, I think Nongshim looked good, not great, and then SANDBOX looked good and not terrible. I think both teams just kind of fell in the middle. That's going to take us to our second game on the second day of Week 1, and that is going to be DRX taking on Afreeca Freecs in what was a truly entertaining series. Definitely one of the most entertaining series of the weekend. If not for another one, I think it would be my series of the week, but alas, there is no doubt as to what my series of the week ends up actually being. But anyways, talking about this series, games 1 and 3 were incredibly close. Game 2 was not. Game 2 was an Afreeca domination. Game 1, Afreeca had the lead pretty much the majority of the game. Fly just ulting top lane over and over and over and over again on that Twisted Fate, just punishing poor Kingen in the top lane. He really did not get to play the game on that Gnar, and that Camille got pretty strong. However, some pretty bad macro by Afreeca, and that's kind of a common theme with them throughout the first week here, caused DRX to be able to get back in the game. I do want to give massive props to this DRX roster. This is a roster that is incredibly young. You only have 2 players who have played in any major region, for any considerable amount of time in Kingen and Pioshik. And this team was down in all 3 games and ended up winning the series. So you have to really give it to DRX for being able to overcome those deficits. Pioshik is going to be my player of the series. I was hyping him up a lot in the preseason. A lot of people thought I had him too high. I had him as the 4th best jungler in Korea. He really came through, and he's proving me right. Or at least in this series, he did. That Graves game, I believe in Game 1, was fantastic. And then that Kindred game, obviously, it's his best champion. He's named after it. So, not much to talk about there. Lehens is going to be my dud of the week. I'm a little bit worried about Lehens because this is I think we can safely say this is no longer Griffin Lehens. This is Hanwha Life Lehens. And that Lehens isn't quite as scary. Right now, he's got this weird fascination with pulling out the new champs. He played a lot of Seraphine in this series. He's going to play some Rel later on in the week. I'm not super high on the picks, and I think they're okay, but I don't know. It's not necessarily working for me. He got caught a lot in this series, especially on that Gragas in Game 1. He looked pretty clueless in Game 1, and that's a little concerning because I think there's a lot of optimism on this team. I think Dread as well, he had some good moments. I thought he had some bad ones as well, though. He basically threw the fight in Game 1 because he went for Dragon by himself, got caught, and that gave up Baron, which DRX used to win the game. Just a terrible play. I don't know who made that call, but it was not the right call. I believe it was in Game 3 where he got completely blown up in the first team fight as Graves and basically got no damage out. Just not overall a fantastic week series, I'd say, for Dread. The start of Game 1, I will say, was fantastic. Camping top over and over again. Really good map awareness there, but outside of that, not the best. That's basically it. I guess DRX, to kind of sum it up, DRX I feel like is going to be a hard out. They're going to be a team that I think plays everyone hard the entire year, and they're going to challenge for a playoff spot. I'm not going to spoil my power rankings right now, but I absolutely think they're going to challenge for a playoff spot. And a winner here over Afreeca was really big for their cause. That's going to bring us into our first game of Day 3, and that was Fredit BRION taking on Gen.G. Gen.G, obviously, earlier in the week, taking on KT Rolster and picking up the victory. This one is no different. This series was not even remotely close. I don't think any of us really expected it to be that close. BRION is really bad. I'm not going to get into their series later in the week, but they clearly look like the worst team in the LCK. I'd be very concerned if I was them, mostly because I don't really see that there's maybe one player on this roster that I think is buildable in Henna. But even then, I think there's weaknesses, and I think It's not necessarily the strongest point on the entire map. But let's talk about the games. Game 1 was really slow. It was that more LCK style. Gen.G picking up the victory in about 30 minutes. Just kind of exactly what you'd expect. Objective control, farming it out. Gen.G style, this exactly what we saw from them last year. And then in game 2, it was a lot more exciting, a lot more aggressive. Ruler getting really far ahead, BDD getting ahead, Rascal getting ahead, pretty much everybody winning their lanes. The game really wasn't that close. It was more like this series was really just a skill gap. Rascal is going to win my player of the game. He's actually also going to be my player of the week. There was a really, really stiff competition for this award, and I'll get to who was a stiff competition for him, but I ended up settling on Rascal. At worst, he's my co-player of the week with the other person that I will get to later. I thought he had a fantastic week in both the games against KT and Brion, but Gen.G just looks really strong. I would be more confident if the wins were against better teams, but I did have the teams that they beat power ranked 9th and 10th. So not necessarily the most dominant of teams that they're beating, but it is good to see them convincingly take out these lower tier teams that I know a lot of sides have a lot of trouble struggling with. You were seeing that a lot in the LPL right now. I won't get into that, but we're seeing, bottom teams pretty commonly take games off of the top teams purely because they're just not in form yet. So to see Gen.G come out and be ready from the start, I think is a really good sign for them. As for Brion, I don't have a lot of positive things to say. Hanwha is pretty good. His positioning's good. is in, and that's okay. I think Chieftain's better. You bring in Chieftain from Vici Gaming last year. I think Chieftain gives you more upside because right now you just don't have anywhere to play through. Hanwha is usually not going to be winning lane because bot lane is so stacked in the LCK. Lava is not really a good player, and Hoya is not really a good player. Hoya is my dud of the series. He got absolutely traumatized on that Gnar. Even on the Quinn. He picked the Quinn into the Renekton and got absolutely obliterated. So, there's just not a lot of positives to talk about for this Brion team. But on the Gen.G side, man, they're looking good. Now it is time to get into the series that everybody is talking about, the series of the week, or my series of the week here in the LCK, and that is DWG KIA versus T1. What a series. What a fun exhibition between what is likely the two best teams in the region. They kind of proved that here. You can make the argument about Gen.G and T1 on that 2-3 spot, but I think they're absolutely in that conversation. Going game by game, Game 1 was pretty firmly in T1's control. Game 2, kind of the opposite, but for DWG, if you have not watched Game 3, I really highly suggest you go and do so. A very fun back and forth game between two of the best teams in the world. Showmaker especially showing why he is probably the best player in the entire world. Just a lot of really, really awesome things out of Showmaker in this series. The Yone game wasn't fantastic. I wasn't super sold on the Yone pick. I think it's fine with Nidalee Samira. I don't hate that combo, but it did not work in that game. However, as soon as he got on the Zoe, he immediately became the best player in the series. And as we know, Zoe's probably his best pick. So I doubt he's going to keep getting that throughout the rest of the year, but he looked pretty damn good in this one. Faker was back in for T1 to take on Showmaker and DWG. And he actually played Azir all 3 games, which I'm not one to be concerned about Faker's champion pool, but that is very odd. Azir is someone I definitely wouldn't consider to be meta right now. And even if he was, I just think with the comp around him and with the style that DWG likes to play, I'm really not sure that drafting something as slow as Azir in all 3 games was really the play here. I'm not super sold on that draft, just personally. And with the Rel as well, I don't think that game 3 draft necessarily works. I would not pick Azir all 3 games. But, it is what it is. I thought Gumayushi actually looked fantastic. He was probably the star of T1's side. He was probably the best player on their side of the game. He looked really good in all 3 games on the Aphelios and the Samira. He's kind of showing himself to be a very versatile, very consistent AD carry. And if that's what you're getting out of him, then you're very excited. Kana is unfortunately going to be my dud of the series. He had a really good game 1 on the Renekton, but it just wasn't enough for me to overlook him being kind of the weak point of games 2 and 3 on that Gnar and especially on that Camille. going into the Gnar. Just kind of a rough series, I'd say, for him. If you take out game 1 especially. I don't think he's a bad player. I think there's a lot of upside here. And as I think you guys know, I ranked Kana as, one of the top, at worst, top 3 top laners in Korea. And I stand by that, but this was definitely not the series for him. As for Damwon, dominant. They look fantastic. This is not a World's hangover. This team looked just as good as they did at the World Championships, and I'm very excited to say that. They were able to pull out a late victory, showing that they still have the mechanics and they still have the macro to be able to do that. And I think that's really impressive. Overall, I think Khan gelled really, really well in this game. I am a little bit concerned about his champion pool, which we'll get to in their series later this week. But again, if you haven't checked out Game 3, go ahead and check that out. It was very, very fun. Overall, Damwon, awesome series. Good series for T1 as well, just not enough to come away with the victory. That's going to bring us to our first series of Day 4 of the LCK Week 1, and that is going to be Liiv SANDBOX taking on KT Rolster in what was, surprisingly, not really a competitive series at all. I don't think people expected that. I certainly didn't expect that. KT kind of ran away with this one, which I know I certainly was not expecting. I don't think they actually had a gold deficit for a single second in the entirety of the series. I could be wrong about that, within the first 2 minutes or something. But at least in important times, they just looked fantastic. They had control. They were able to close out. I thought a lot of the players that were really concerning in the first series against Gen G really turned it around. I thought Doran had a really, really good series. That Quinn game in Game 2 was really dominant. That Renekton stood absolutely no chance. Summit is actually going to be my dud of the week. Or not my dud of the week, my dud of the series. He had a good first series of the year, but he is going to be my dud of the series here. The Malphite game in Game 1 just wasn't it. I see what you want to do with this front-to-back team comp with Azir and Samira, but it just didn't quite work out. And then in Game 2, he got absolutely destroyed by that Quinn in the top lane on the Renekton. But UCal is actually going to be my player of the series. I thought UCal actually played pretty well in the Gen G series as well. But his Victor game in Game 1 was really good. Being able to punish the Azir of Fate. Again, I'm just not a huge fan of the Azir pick here. I just think it's too slow, especially going into something like Camille Kaisa, who, is going to scale, is going to be able to split push. You're never really going to be able to get a front-to-back team fight with this comp. Victor's going to be able to manage side waves. Camille's going to be split pushing. It's just going to be really difficult to get what you want here. So I'm not really a fan of the Azir pick in Game 1. But UCal is my player of the series. He was really good in Week 1. Obviously, we know UCal is a good player. The consistency is the problem with him. If he can consistently play well, then this team is going to be a playoff contender. However, they're going to need him to be that. I thought Blank, by the way, shout out Blank. Blank coming in for Bonnie here in the second series for KT Rolster. And he looked really good. This team is definitely better with him in the lineup. He looked very good on that Lilia in Game 1, and even the Talia on Game 2 was pretty strong. He out-jungled Krako in both games. But, yeah, a lot to like here from KT. Not a lot to like from SANDBOX. This is a team that I don't think people expected to be this rusty, but they are. Your only change, well, I guess your two changes being Krako in the jungle and Effort in the support role. Krako's been all right. He's definitely been one of your better performing members, but Effort has not looked good. Fate looked pretty good in the first series, took a big step back in this one. Same with Summit, same with Route. Consistency is going to be a big thing for this team. They're going to need to not drop games like this or series like this, especially 2-0, to teams like KT Rolster, teams like DRX, teams like Afreeca, teams like Brion. These are the teams that you can't be getting 2-0'd by because you need those points. So if they're not going to be able to consistently handle those teams, I don't think that they're going to be near the playoff scene. But, obviously this team has the talent. We've seen it before. I'm a fan of Summit. I'm a fan of Fate. I'm a fan of Route. I like this team, but they definitely need to get it together if they hope to have a shot at the playoffs this year. That's going to bring us to our second series of Day 4, and that is going to be Hanwha Life Esports taking on DRX, Chovy and Deft returning to the DRX home, I guess, to take them on. This was actually a really, really fun series. Games 2 and 3 were back and forth, down to the wire. Game 1, Hanwha pretty cleanly walked away with it. They looked very good. Chovy, especially in that Game 1, looked very strong, as you'd expect. Chovy is a fantastic player. I thought they actually, you'll see I have Dudu and Morgan with a cross there. That's Dudu played games 1 and 2, and then Morgan played game 3. But Dudu on the Camille was really, really good. I thought he really, really took over that game. Quite brazen to pick the Mordekaiser, and especially with I don't want to get too much into this DRX draft in game 1, but Mordekaiser, Lee Sin, Cassiopeia is just kind of running it. I know, obviously, Pioshik's a fantastic Lee Sin. I'm sure Solka's a great Cassio. I'm sure Kingen is a great Mordekaiser, but this isn't it, especially against Camille Talia. Like, the map pressure that you are giving up with Cassio, Lee Sin, Mordekaiser is nuts. And it's a Twisted Fate in the mid lane. That's not even talking about the Twisted Fate. Misfortune in the bot lane for you to get ahead. You have a Maokai, so you can do front-to-back team fights if you really want to do that. This is such a tough comp to execute for DRX, and I did not like this draft at all. Game 2 was much, much better for DRX. Pioshik played really well. Bao was actually the big standout here on the Aphelios, kind of keeping them in the game here. I thought he played really, really well. He kind of tore apart Vista, who is just, I think we've learned by this point, is not good. I wanted to try to give him the benefit of the doubt, but he's really underperformed to start the year so far. But this was a really, really good win for DRX in game 2. They had control for most of the game, almost gave it up towards the end, but managed to hang on there. And then in game 3, again, another back and forth, fun game. You have Chovy on the Galio that really makes the difference. This guy completely changes fights. Galio, you wouldn't expect to be a pick that really does that, but Chovy's that kind of player where he can do that. Deft, absolutely destroying on the Samira. Arthur having a really, really good game on the Pantheon as well. A lot of good things to talk about here. Not a big fan of Kingen. Kingen was my dud of the week, or my dud of the series. I wasn't a big fan of Kingen on BLG. I wasn't, and what I've seen so far, I'm not sold on him coming in either. Obviously, your young players aren't exactly perfect. Becca has not had a great start to the year in the support position. I don't think Solka's been all that consistent. I think Bao has actually been pretty good, and Pioshik, I think, has been sneakily pretty good. But, I'm not really sold on Kingen here. I think this is a position you could potentially look to upgrade in the midseason, but, maybe I'm thinking too much in advance, and I should give him a little bit more time. I just think I've seen enough of him in the LPL as well as here now in the LCK to kind of make the opinion that he is a very slow, very calculated kind of pacey tempo player that just isn't great. It's not a game that you can play right now. So Kingen is my dud of the series. Chovy is going to be my player of the series. He kind of completely took over every game. He was one of the best players in every game. You had the Twisted Fate ults in game 1. You had the Galio in game 3, especially. Orianna in game 2 is still really good, but those games 1 and 3, I think he was probably, if not the best player, at least the second best player on the team in both of those games. So he's going to get my player of the series. Hanwha, looking good. I think I had a lot of question marks about this team going into the year. Not all of them are solved because obviously the support position is still a massive question mark to me. But overall, I think they looked good. They stayed competitive against T1, and they looked good against this DRX team. DRX, I think, is better than people are giving them credit for, but how much better, I guess we'll have to wait and see. That's going to lead us into our final day of LCK action, and that day was kicked off with Nongshim RedForce taking on Damwon Gaming KIA in what was not really a competitive series, which is a little bit sad to see, but very, very enlightening towards how good Damwon really is at this point. They're set. I mean, they're there. Like, you don't really have to worry about, some Worlds hangover. Showmaker especially is there. He's going to be my player of the series. He's actually going to be, gosh, it's really tough. Rascal and Showmaker, I want to give them, co-players of the week. I want to give it to Rascal just because I'm pretty sure Showmaker's going to win it again later this year. But, both of them really played out of their minds this week. Both of them deserve the award. But Showmaker especially, again, in this series. That Lucian in Game 1 was disgusting. I can't believe that got through. Lucian Nidalee, I don't think is the most dominant of, the Lucian combinations. But I still think it's good enough to say, hey, maybe we don't want to give Showmaker Lucian. Which, of course, they banned it out in the second game. But, that Showmaker dominated in that Game 1. Ghost had a really good game as well in the Kai'Sa. My dud of the series is going to be Bae, who is a massive question mark for this team. He didn't look that great in their win against SANDBOX in the first series of the year. He kind of got outplayed by Fate the entirety of the series, and he wasn't even in the same vicinity of Showmaker. Obviously, this is about the toughest test you could possibly have, trying to play Zoe into Showmaker, but he still got to do better than what he did. And the Orianna in Game 2 wasn't much better. I have not been super impressed with what I've seen out of Bae so far. I think the rest of the team is kind of coming together. Rich, maybe not as much. The Aatrox and the Renekton, neither of which looked really good, but you are going against Khan. Khan on the Gnar, though, I think is a really weird pick, but I digress. I think Peanut, Dectum, and Kellen are there. Kellen had a rough game one, but I don't think it was his fault. Obviously, like I always say, you're going to look worse as a support if your team is losing. And a lot of, the situations that he got caught in weren't necessarily entirely his fault. But I think Peanut and Dectum are two really good solid pieces. But Rich and Bay really need to step up in order for this team to meet its potential. As for Damwon, they're the best team in the world right now. I think it's going to be really hard to break that opinion of me. It's going to take months. We're going to have to go on like a 10-game losing streak because they just look dominant. They are showing complete macro control. They're outskilling everybody. Their drafts are good. They're keeping people on their toes without taking things that are like super off meta. The only thing I would change would be the Gnar, but I guess it works in a comp with like Lucian and Italy. But like this team is there, and I'm very, very excited to see that. It's going to be a long time before we're talking about Damwon as not one of the best teams in the world. That's going to lead us into our final series of the week, and that was Afreeca Freecs taking on Fredit BRION, Fredit BRION, some pronunciation in what was a stomp that almost wasn't a stomp, but we'll get to that. BRION, they just don't look good. I'm trying to find positives to take away from here. Hanwha looked good in game 1 on the Kai'Sa, and he looked decent on game 2 on the Aphelios. He is absolutely the shining light of this team that is just mercilessly struggling. Really, really not a lot of positives to look at here. Afreeca with a solid win, bouncing back from that loss to DRX. I'm very concerned about this Afreeca team because the weaknesses that they are showing are not good ones. And that's macro and being able to contain a lead. They had that big lead in game 1 against DRX that they threw away, and DRX won that game. They had a lead in game 3 as well, but it wasn't nearly as big. And they had a massive lead here in game 2, and it took them 40 minutes to close out on what we think is probably the worst team in the league. They gave them ample opportunity to come back into that game. Just macro-wise, this team is very, very far from being there. However, they do have a lot of skill. Bang had a fantastic series. He's going to be my player of the series on that Samira and the Kai'Sa. Just get him some protection. He's going to be able to win fights. I don't necessarily think it was all him. It's good to see him playing better because obviously he had such a rough 2019 and 2020 in North America that it's really good to see him back here in the LCK doing well, especially. So for his sake, I hope Afreeca's a good team, but Fly took a pretty big step back from the first series this week. He was definitely one of the best members, probably the best member of Afreeca in their series against DRX, but he took a pretty big step back here. He had a good game 1 on the Orianna, but that game 2 on the Syndra just wasn't for me. Not my performance. You need to do better against Lava. Lava is, especially on the Corki, Lava is one of the bottom mid laners in the league on the Corki. You got to be able to punish that matchup. Played all right on the Pantheon in game 2. That's another takeaway. I still would rather see Chieftain. I think he gives you more upside. I think he has more carry potential, but that's just me personally. I think we know what we're getting with and it's not what we want. Outside of that, Delight is my dud of the series. It sucks to give it to Delight. I didn't want to give it to Delight, but I kind of had to. Consistently getting caught out of position. The Galio and the Thresh were not picks that worked for him. I wanted to give it to Lava just because I thought Lava played bad, but you can say they split it. You can say Delight and Lava split the dud of the series here, but just overall a very, very rough, very rough week 1 for BRION. This was a necessary win for Afreeca, but not one that necessarily got rid of all of my doubts, as the macro of this team really has to shore up before I can really take them seriously as a contender. That's going to do it for my Week 1 LCK Power Rankings recaps analysis. Up on the screen now, on the left, you are going to see the updated standings for what the LCK is currently looking like after Week 1. On the right, you are going to see my personal power rankings. In front of all of the team names, you are going to see either a plus, a minus, or an NC to show how they have changed from last week to this week. NC, of course, meaning no change. Plus, however, means rising. Minus means falling, etc., etc. My biggest riser this week is DRX, who I actually now have in a playoff spot as the 6th best team. They looked better than Afreeca. They actually looked pretty good in their series against Hanwha. I have a lot of confidence about DRX and just not nearly as much about someone like Afreeca. My biggest follower, no surprise, is going to be SANDBOX, dropping from 7 to 9. Just not necessarily the week you wanted to see. They showed some good things, but they also showed a lot of bad things. They really, really need to clean up the edges before I feel comfortable about them. Some people are probably going to be mad that I have T1 over Gen G, with Gen G being 4-0. However, I just think T1's better right now. I'm not a guy who's going to stick to the standings always in his power rankings, that if you're 2-0, you have to be at the top of the power rankings. I'm going to power rank how good I think these teams are. And I currently think that T1 is the second best team in Korea. These two teams are going to play off soon, so, we're going to get to find that out. But until then, T1 is going to be above them in the power rankings unless something drastic happens. Obviously, I don't know when next week is going to show upsets or anything like that. But I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, go ahead and leave a like. Leave a comment on how you guys like the new style that I do for the visuals. I really am curious. I want to make this as good of a product as I can for you guys. So please let me know how you guys like that in the comment section below. I hope you guys are having a wonderful and fantastic day. I hope you continue to have a fantastic day, and I will see you all later.